Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare. Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Second chapter, text number 39. Esha te abhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyami esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyami
esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi esha te bhihitā sāṅkhye buddhir yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi.
एषा ते bhihitā sāṅkhye
एषा ते bhihitā sāṅkhye
buddhir-yoge त्वमिमां śṛणु
buddhir-yoge imāṁ śṛṇu
buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha
buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha
karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi
karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi.
एषा ते bhihitā sāṅkhye
एषा ते bhihitā sāṅkhye
buddhir-yoge त्वमिमां śṛणु
buddhir-yoge imāṁ śṛṇu buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi.
एषा ते abhihitā sāṅkhye
एषा ते bhihitā sāṅkhye
buddhir-yoge त्वमिमां śṛणु
buddhir-yoge imāṁ śṛṇu
yuktaḥ yayā pārtha
buddhyā yukto yayā pārtha
karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi
karma-bandhaṁ prahāsyasi.
Esha, all these, te, unto you, abhihitā, described, sāṅkhye, by analytical study, buddhi, intelligence, yoge, in work without fruitive result, to, but, imāṁ, this, śṛṇu, just here, buddhyā, by intelligence, yukto, dovetailed, yayā, by which, pārtha, O son of Pṛthā, karma-bandhaṁ, bondage of reaction, prahāsyasi, you can be released from. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. Thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as explained it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pṛthā, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So, purport, a long purport. According to the Nirukti, or the Vedic dictionary, Sāṅkhya means that which describes things in detail. And Sāṅkhya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul. And yoga involves controlling the senses. Actually, traditionally there are two Sāṅkhya philosophies. So Sāṅkhya, so that which describes in detail, also the analytical study of this material world. And one is by Kapil Dev, the son of Devahuti, and Kadama Muni, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he gives the theistic, the devotional aspect of the analytical study, culminating in giving knowledge of the soul and the relationship of the soul with the Supreme Being, Krishna, God. Whereas there was an atheistic Sāṅkhya propounder, also of the name Kapil Dev. So he gave the impersonal analytical study, which of course is not accepted by us, although generally, even amongst many scholars of the Vedic literatures, they accept the impersonal conception, but that is not approved by the Vaishnavas, but also considered one of the 6 philosophies which are described in the Vedic literatures. So yoga means, involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. As we know also, yoga means to link with the Supreme Lord, to engage the senses actually in Krishna's service. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting, because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom after conquering his son, his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Happiness derived from conquering them, and happiness derived by seeing kinsmen alive are both on the basis of personal sense gratification, even at sacrifice of wisdom and duty. So this is an important point, that we have to actually act for Krishna's satisfaction, Krishnendriya Priti. So we have to try to satisfy the senses of Krishna, not for our Atmendriya Tripti. We should not act for our own sense gratification. Even sometimes as devotee, and we know that Arjuna is a great devotee of the Lord. But of course, so that the Bhagavad-Gita could be spoken, he was put in that situation. And he was momentarily bewildered in trying to understand what to do now. Shall I fight or shall I not fight? So Prabhupada is making here a point, so that one point of view is that by conquering the enemy, then one can enjoy this material world. So that is from the point of view of sense gratification. So that is not to be done, but conquering the enemy because Krishna wanted. So that has to be done. And whereas on the other hand, here not wanting to fight because of wanting the kinsman to remain alive. So that is also maybe based on sense gratification, which has to be avoided. Whereas sometimes due to compassion also one may decline, so that would be also accepted, to decline to fight with one's own relatives. As we know, one should not fight against the superiors. So even it is mentioned one should not speak in an improper way with the superiors, always respectfully. One should speak with the superiors, what to speak of fighting. But here Krishna is asking Arjuna to fight against his Gurujan, his spiritual masters. From the ordinary point of view, that is highly improper. To fight against the spiritual master. And here for the Kshatriya, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Bhishmadev, the old teachers of Arjuna and the other Pandavas. So to fight against them from the point of view of moral principles, that was highly improper. And so many relatives were there, so that was not proper from one point of view. But because they were taking the side of Duryodhana, who was not acting properly, who was not conscious, not God conscious, so therefore to fight against them because they were not on the right side, or they were obliged, maybe said they were obliged. Bhishmadev, because he took a vow that he will always be there and look for, of course, the kingdom, so that everything may go on well in the kingdom. So, but Duryodhana was actually trying to drive away from the kingdom the Pandavas, who were actually, Yudhishthira was supposed to be enthroned on the throne because Duryodhana's father was blind. So, and then Pandu was the emperor, and then Arjuna, the Pandavas, and especially Yudhishthira was supposed to be the next emperor. But Duryodhana was not agreeing with that. He was thinking, I'm the son of Dhritarashtra, although he was blind, but I'm not blind, so I should be actually the emperor. So as we know, due to that, so the fight ensued, but basically there was a need to kill so many persons, kings who were not on the righteous path, who were not dharmic, who were not following the principles of dharma, of religion. So Duryodhana also was not following the principles of dharma, only to some extent, not fully. So therefore they had to be killed. And therefore, so by Krishna's will, so that was arranged, the war between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and Arjuna was supposed to be the instrument. But first he was not ready to do that, as explained here in Bhagavad-Gita, and as we know. So if the people are living their lives based on sense gratification, as it is nowadays also slaughtering animals especially, then there has to be reaction, and therefore there will be war, and therefore we can see war is happening all the time, as now we can see between Russia and Ukraine, due to people being sinful, because they are, rather than serving Krishna, the Supreme Lord, they are engaged in sense gratification. So dharma means to ultimately to engage in the service of the Lord. That is parodharma, the supreme dharma is to satisfy the senses of Krishna, and that is the natural inclination for the soul, that is to serve Krishna, and that is real dharma. And so if one is not doing that, then one is not following dharma properly, or it is some temporary dharma known as naimittika dharma, which may be also based on sense gratification. So they were also knowing to some extent the principles of dharma according to the Vedic literatures, the rules for a kshatriya, but they were not surrendered to Krishna. So, which is ultimately the real purpose of dharma, is to surrender to Krishna, parodharma. Otherwise it is temporary, based on the body, and mostly based on sense gratification, which has to be given up. Krishna therefore wanted to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, he will not be killing the soul proper. And he explained that all individual persons, including the Lord himself, are eternal individuals. There were individuals in the past, there are individuals in the present, and they will continue to remain individuals in the future, because all of us are individual souls eternally. That is the first point Krishna is making to Arjuna, and it is the first step in spiritual life. To understand that we are not this body, that we are different from the gross and the subtle material body, that we are spirit soul. So that is the first thing we have to understand. And that we have a relationship with the Supreme Being, with God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maybe Krishna or Ramchandra Bhagavan or Narayan, Vishnu, and so on. So that is the first step in spiritual life, to understand that we are not this body, we are spirit soul. And which is not so easy. We may hear, we may theoretically understand, but to realize it is not so easy. For that we have to follow the process which is given in Bhagavad-Gita, which is given by the spiritual masters. We simply change our bodily dress in different manners, but actually we keep our individuality even after liberation from the bondage of material dress. So as we know, so any learned person, he knows that at the time of death, if one has not achieved perfection, then he will have to enter into another body. Dehinusmin yatha dehe kaumaram javram jara tatha dehantar pratir dhiras tatra namuyati. So dhira, one who is dhira, one who is sober, is not bewildered by the change of the body. from boyhood to youth to old age. Although if we look back, so every one of us was a small child many, many years ago. For many of us, 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. For the youngsters, 10 years ago, right? You were 5 years old. Here also some of the girls here, not so long ago. And so now the body has changed completely, totally different in size and of course some similarities there. We can see from the face especially, and the face will look somewhat similar, but still there's a great difference there. And then comes old age, so youth, boyhood and youth and then old age. So the body is changing. Even the scientists, they're saying that the body is changing within 7 years. All the complete body's change, all the cells are changed every 7 years. So practically new bodies there. But the soul is, the individuality, the individual is the same. Same person is there. The I is the same. Because the soul is eternal. So similarly at the time of death, so the body is old, so the body is falling apart. Oh, one cannot see anymore nicely in old age, one cannot hear nicely, and one cannot walk nicely, and the brain is not functioning nicely anymore. Digestion is weak, one can hardly eat usually. So many difficulties may be there, and the body becomes practically useless. And then one has to give up the body. That is also ultimately the mercy of the Lord, and one can get a new body. Just like if one has some, everyone has clothes he's wearing, and when they when they are old and torn and stained, and it cannot be cleaned nicely, then one is giving them up and changing into new dress. Or if one has a car, one is driving for 10, 15, 20 years, but then the car also is falling apart and one has to repair all the time. So at a certain point then the vehicle becomes useless, and then one is giving that up and one is buying a new one. So similarly, old age means giving up the old body which has become useless and accepting a new one. Of course, ultimately, we do not want to take birth again, but we want to go back to the spiritual world. So that is the goal of life. And for that purpose, one is getting spiritual knowledge, one is approaching a realized soul, and one is studying the scriptures, following the instruction of the spiritual master, and then one can advance in spiritual life. And then one can realize the transcendental subject matters. One can realize practically that one is not the body, that one is spirit soul. And one can realize that Satchidananda Swarup of Krishna, of the Supreme Lord, as He is. So practical realization will be there by engaging in devotional service. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavidamitam Uttamam, Pratakshaksham, Dhamyam, Susukkam Kattam Avyayam. Atma Sakshatkar. So direct realization of the self and the Supreme Self. So that is the goal in life, and so that is possible by engaging in devotional service in a practical way. But first one has to hear, and one has to hear from the realized soul, and then one has to follow the instructions. And the age of Kali especially, one has to chant the holy names, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then we can realize Krishna Swarup and our Swarup. That goes hand in hand. If we realize that we are a spirit soul, then automatically we'll realize also Krishna's transcendental form. When we realize Krishna's transcendental form, then we can realize our transcendental form. an analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles of vision has been described here as sāṅkhye in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. So Sanskrit dictionary is there, Shabdakosh, so that is explained there, and so that is mentioned here in the verse, sāṅkhye, the analytical study. And also significant here is buddhiḥ, intelligence. By intelligence one can understand the subject matter, especially in the analytical study. And then also significant yoge, so in work without fruitive result or linking with the Supreme Lord. And so bhakti-yoga is sometimes also known as buddhi yoga. So we have to use our intelligence and then we engage in devotional service. If one is conditioned, of course, according to the modes of material nature, the intelligence will be also. So those in the mode of goodness, their intelligence is in the mode of goodness. If one is in passion, then the intelligence will be mode of passion. So therefore we have to actually pray to Krishna to give us the help, the intelligence by which we can advance nicely. So that is known as sadha buddhi, transcendental intelligence, by which we can understand things as they are, by which we can then advance in spiritual life. So, but specifically here for studying Sāṅkhye philosophy, of course, which is there in ultimately in Sanskrit, so one must have some intelligence. So like even, for example, Sanskrit, in order to learn Sanskrit, one must be in this mode of goodness, and and one must have good memory. Then only one can actually learn Sanskrit, which is of course beneficial to learn Sanskrit. But even more important than learning Sanskrit is to engage in devotional service, first under the guidance of the spiritual master, who is properly situated, who has transcendental intelligence, who is the mercy incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Krishna Kripa Sri Murti is the embodiment of the mercy of Krishna. So Krishna is giving intelligence from within the heart, and that is then sadha buddhi, that is transcendental intelligence. But in conditioned state, especially if one is not so much situated in the mode of goodness, if one is still very much influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance, then the intelligence will not be sharp. So therefore one has to take guidance from the spiritual master, from the advanced devotee who are transcendently situated, who have transcendental intelligence, and they will guide us, they will tell us what to do and what not to do. Then it becomes easier to engage in devotional service. But we have to do our work also. We have to endeavor very seriously and sincerely. We need the mercy from the spiritual master and the Lord, but we have to be very enthusiastic and have strong determination and try to be always engaged in devotional activities with the body, with the mind and with the words, and pray for transcendental intelligence, and then we can understand the subject matter, and then we can be properly situated in devotional service, and then we can advance nicely. This Sāṅkhye has nothing to do with the Sāṅkhye philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Long before the impostor Kapila Sāṅkhye, the Sāṅkhye philosophy was expounded in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the true Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Lord Krishna, who explained it to his mother Devahuti. It is clearly explained by him that the Purush, or the Supreme Lord, is active and that he creates by looking over Prakriti. So Prakriti, material nature, is there. So as we know, so by Krishna's will ultimately this material world is manifested. And so it is the play of the Lord, the Leela of the Lord. But then for the further process of creation, so the expansions of the Lord, specifically also Mahavishnu, known as Karunadakshi Vishnu, becomes manifested in the coastal ocean, and then by his power, when he's exhaling, then unlimited universes are emanating from his body, and they stay for millions and millions of years. That is just one exhalation. And when he's inhaling, then all the universes are again entering into his body. And then furthermore, so when he has exhaled, Mahavishnu, then in each of the universes, unlimited universes, there's one expanded form of the second Purusha avatar, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, is entering into each universe. So each universe has a Garbhodakshay Vishnu. And from each of the Garbhodakshay Vishnu's lotus navel, one lotus flower is emanating, and which is then at the appearance place of Lord Brahma, the secondary creator, who is being enthused by the Supreme Lord himself to do the work of creating the different species of life. But also first he was doing tapa. He heard the sound tapa, and he was doing austerity, and he was meditating. And he was divinely inspired first by the eternal consort of Vishnu, Divya Saraswati, who gave him the Gopal mantra, famous Gopal mantra. And so he was chanting that, and then he received the Gayatri mantra, which emanated from Krishna's flute as he was playing the flute. And it entered the ear holes of Lord Brahma, and then he was known as Dvija, twice born, being initiated by the Supreme Lord himself. And then when he was properly situated in his meditation, and it is even mentioned by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada that it was revealed to him that he is a maid servant of Krishna, means a gopi of Krishna. But not all the details were revealed to him. So different details are known here in regards to Braj Bhakti, the Ekadasha Bhav, that 11 symptoms are mentioned there. The form is there, then the name, when one will stay in Braj, the father's and mother's name. So that may be revealed, as it was revealed to Lord Brahma, step by step by chanting the Gayatri mantra, or for us by chanting the Maha mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Slowly one's transcendental form can be revealed, and then all the details may be revealed one after the other. And then after also the third Purusha avatar is there, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, who is situated in everyone's heart as the super soul and guiding the conditioned soul so he may advance in spiritual life. So with the help of the Supreme Lord, then everything comes into being. So that is mentioned also again in the Brahma Samhita when he's glancing at Prakriti. And also actually with the help of Shambhu. So that means Lord Shiva, who is not exactly, almost like Vishnu, but still is a difference, just like milk and yogurt. So yogurt is just a transformation of milk. So there's not different from milk, but at the same time there's a difference there. So with milk you can make many milk products. You can make sweets, whereas with dahi that can also be used, but you cannot make the same sweets as with the milk. So similarly, so the Supreme Lord, Krishna is there, or Vishnu, is the source of everything. And then Lord Shiva is there for the purpose also, to some extent in the beginning of the creation, he has a role there also with his consort Parvati Devi, and which is Prakriti, material energy, which is the external manifestation of the internal energy of the Lord. So Vishnu is there, and then the eternal consort Rama Devi or Lakshmi Devi. And so Shiva is an expanded form of Vishnu. Actually Sadashiv is there in Vaikuntha, which is the origin of Shambhu, Shiva. And then so ultimately then the eternal consort, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, Rama Devi, she is the origin of Parvati Devi. But then the original personality, that is Krishna, Adi Purush, Swayam Bhagavan, and the original energy, Mool Shakti, that is Srimati Radharani. So it is clearly explained by him that the Purush or the Supreme Lord is active and that he creates by looking over the Prakriti. This is accepted in the Vedas and in the Gita. The description in the Vedas indicates that the Lord glanced over the Prakriti or nature and impregnated it with atomic individual souls. All these individuals are working in the material world for sense gratification, and under the spell of material energy they are thinking of being enjoyers. This mentality is dragged to the last point of liberation when the living entity wants to become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of Maya or sense gratificatory illusion, and it is only after many births of such sense gratificatory activities that the great soul surrenders unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, thereby fulfilling the search after the ultimate truth. So it is explained by the Acharyas and in the scriptures and by Krishna himself in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita. Kshara, Rakshara, two kinds of living entities, those who are infallible and those who are fallible. The Nitya Siddha and the Nitya Baddha. So some living entities, they have been engaged in the service of the Lord since time immemorial. Whereas others, they have been in conditioned state also since time immemorial. And they are also eternal sons of Krishna. They are also coming from Krishna ultimately. But they have not been engaged in the service of the Lord yet. But when this material world is manifested, then they come in this world. And it is even mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, when the material world is created. And so one part of the spiritual world, it is just like a cloud in the sky, which is created by the will of the Lord. Pradhan, unmanifested matter is there, and then it becomes Mahatattva Prakriti. It becomes matter, and then in this cloud of which is then in the spiritual world, which is then becoming the material world, then the Purushavatars are entering, and then some of the jivas, they are then from the spiritual sky, were situated there, so they will come into this material world. It is mentioned there that some, by good fortune, if they look towards Unmukh, towards the Supreme Lord, towards the spiritual realm, they can go to the spiritual realm and be engaged in devotional activities, whereas the majority, they're looking towards the material world, and then they're entering this material world, and they become conditioned by the modes of material nature. Sattvagun, Rajagun and Tamagun. But since it is the desire and it is the nature of the soul to be engaged in the service of the Lord, and Krishna is making all arrangement by himself coming and giving knowledge, or by his different incarnations to give this transcendental knowledge, or the spiritual master, the empowered representative of the Lord, they give this transcendental knowledge so that the Baddha Jivas, the conditioned souls, they can come to the understanding that they actually belong to Krishna. They belong to the spiritual world, and they are meant to serve the Supreme Lord. And so if they are under the guidance of the spiritual master, of the Vaishnavas, or following the instructions of the Supreme Lord, then they can realize their transcendental nature. Whereas others who are not accepting the words of the Supreme Lord from the scriptures or from the saintly devotees, they will remain in this material world. And as explained here by Prabhupada, the last snare of Maya, the greatest illusion, is actually to wanting to become one with the absolute truth. So by merging into the Brahma Jyoti, as the Mayavadis are trying to convince others, so that the jivas, so they understand that we are spirit soul, and that we have to become free from this material entanglement, but they have the misconception that we are part of the impersonal aspect, the Brahma Jyoti, the Param Brahma for them, that is the big light, the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth. They will say the Absolute Truth has no form, which is only one aspect of the Absolute Truth. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. Vedanta tattva vidastatvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. So they learn transcendentalists, they understand that the Absolute Truth may be divided into three parts. The Brahman realization that the Absolute Truth is impersonal aspect, is there, the Brahma Jyoti, Param Brahma, no form, may be there, which has some truth is there, because the Brahma Jyoti is actually the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, and as such there may be simply the light may be there, but that is not the highest understanding, and the further understanding may be there, that the Absolute Truth is there, situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, but that is also not the permanent relationship of the jivas, because Paramatma is only there in the spirit, in the material world, although also transcendental and accompanying the individual soul, but the Paramatma is simply an expansion of Shankarshan, Mahasankarshan, and the spiritual realm. So, but the jivas have a relationship with Krishna or with Vishnu or with Ram, Chandra Bhagavan. So that is the ultimate understanding, Bhagavan realization. So, but the Mayavadis, they may merge into the Brahma Jyoti, but then they will have to come back eventually to this material world, because that is the conditioned, the spiritual conditioned state, if one is thinking that the Absolute Truth has no form. So one has to go further. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as his spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Shishyasteham sharimam tam prapannam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process in buddhi-yoga or karma-yoga, or in other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. So here also again it is mentioned that Arjuna accepted Krishna as his spiritual master, so that is essential. One has to accept the spiritual master, and ultimately Krishna is Adiguru, and then we can advance further in spiritual life. Without the help of the spiritual master, one cannot advance. And here again, buddhi yoga is explained. So karma yoga, karma, so activities are performed, and yoga to link with the Lord. So that is one form of devotional service, but it is not fully dedicated to the Lord, so it is not the highest form of yoga. Further, there is jnana yoga also, and then there is bhakti yoga. This buddhi yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord who is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart. But such communion does not take place without devotional service. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to this stage of buddhi yoga by the special mercy of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only those who are always engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love does He award a pure knowledge of devotion in love. In that way, the devotee can reach Him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. Tesham satyayuktanam bhaja tesham satyayuktanam tatami buddhi yogam tam ye. Yeah. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Tesham satyayuktayam. So those who are constantly engaged in devotional service, to them I give the knowledge by which they can come to me. So only if one is constantly engaged in devotional service, then one will get this pure intelligence, sad buddhi, and then one can nicely proceed. But even as explained, the karma yoga, if one is not acknowledging the Supreme Lord and starting to engage in devotional service, then one will get some intelligence from the Paramatma, from the Super Soul. But the more one is advancing, then the more actually we will get the help from Krishna. And then further, then also devotee will understand that actually we respect the Paramatma, the Super Soul, but we are taking shelter of Krishna. And then Krishna personally will guide the devotee. So that is the highest form that is attained by bhakti-yoga. Thus the buddhi-yoga mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord, and the word sāṅkhye mentioned herein has nothing to do with the artistic sāṅkhye yoga enunciated by the imposter Kapil. One should not therefore misunderstand that the sāṅkhye yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the artistic sāṅkhya. Nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time. Nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sāṅkhya philosophy is described by Lord Kapil and the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even that Sāṅkhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Here Sāṅkhya means analytical description of the body and the soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of buddhi yoga or bhakti yoga. Therefore Lord Krishna Sāṅkhya and Lord Kapila Sāṅkhya as described in the Bhagavatam are one and the same. So ultimately, the Supreme Lord or even the spiritual master is giving the same knowledge to the disciple, but sometimes just giving a different angle of vision, and some details may differ, but the basic principle is the same. They are all bhakti yoga, so devotional service to the Lord. Lord Krishna said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of man make distinction between Sāṅkhya yoga and bhakti yoga. Sāṅkhya yoga pritak bala pravadanti na panditaha. So the learned person, they will make no distinction between Sāṅkhya yoga and bhakti yoga. Of course, artistic Sāṅkhya yoga has nothing to do with bhakti yoga. Yet the unintelligent claim that the artistic Sāṅkhya yoga is referred to in the Bhagavad-Gita. One should therefore understand that buddhi yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness in the full bliss and knowledge of devotional service. One who works for the satisfaction of the Lord only. However difficult such work may be, is working under the principles of buddhi yoga and finds himself always in transcendental bliss. By such transcendental engagement, one achieves all transcendental understanding automatically by the grace of the Lord, and thus his liberation is complete in itself, without his making extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge. So by engaging in devotional service, then so Krishna is actually giving knowledge. Krishna is guiding us. Krishna is giving realization. And then gradually, step by step, so we can become absorbed in remembering Krishna's wonderful form, his qualities, and his pastimes. And we don't have to make such a great endeavor to acquire knowledge. But of course, some knowledge has to be there. Therefore, we are hearing or reading the Bhagavad-Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So some knowledge must be there. And some renunciation, jnana and vairagya has to be there. One has to become free, slowly but surely, from this attachment to this material world, and one has to acquire knowledge, transcendental knowledge. But then most important, that is bhakti, that one has to engage in devotional service. And by engaging in devotional service, we will get transcendental knowledge. And then we will also become detached. When we are attached to Krishna, when we are engaged in devotional service, then automatically we will become detached from this material world, and then Krishna will give realizations, he will give knowledge from within the heart. So, but acquiring knowledge that is helpful and trying to be detached by, for example, only accepting what is necessary for the maintenance of the body and the soul. We have to try to control the mind and the senses, and therefore we do some austerity like fasting on Ekadashi from grains, and we follow Chaturmas Vrat or Kartik Vrat. So some endeavor has to be there from our side to gain some knowledge, to become detached from this world. But most important is that we have to be engaged in devotional service, and then Krishna will help us by giving us transcendental realizations and then we become so much enchanted by Krishna that we forget to, or we are then not attracted to this material world. Then automatically will be there, detachment. There's much difference between working Krishna consciousness and work for fruitive results, especially in the matter of sense gratification, for achieving results in terms of family or material happiness. Buddhi yoga is therefore the transcendental quality of the work that we perform. So we have to be always engaged in spiritual activities, and that is known as bhakti-yoga or buddhi-yoga, or in the beginning stage it is known as karma-yoga, when one is acting for the pleasure of the Lord, but at the same time one is not fully absorbed. And then jnana yoga is there, also we acquiring knowledge, but one is not fully absorbed in devotional activities with love and affection. But ultimately we have to do everything with love and affection. So then it becomes bhakti yoga, when one is trying to be constantly engaged with body, mind and words in the service of the Lord, under the direction of the spiritual master. And so that is the highest form of buddhi yoga, if one is engaged in devotional service. And so that is what Krishna actually is encouraging Arjuna to do. So by giving the sāṅkhye understanding, so that we can understand, as Prabhupada is explaining, that to differentiate between the material body, gross and subtle, and the soul. So that is referred to here as sāṅkhye. And then buddhi, so we have to, and then with this intelligence ultimately given by Krishna, so one should be connected to Krishna and work without desire to gain something from our work. Although otherwise in karma yoga, those who are doing karma yoga, they still have some desire for sense gratification. But we should try to do everything for Krishna's pleasure without expecting anything in return. But then if you are engaged in such a way for Krishna's pleasure, then automatically we'll be also blissful. And then whatever we need, Krishna is saying also in the 9th chapter, that those who are constantly engaged, ananya chintantamam yajana payapashate tesham nityavayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham, to those who are constantly engaged in devotional service, to them I preserve what they have and give what they lack. So whatever we have, that will remain with us, and whatever we need, spiritually speaking, if we need some transcendental knowledge and guidance, so that He will give. And whatever we need in the material world, we need a place to stay, we need some clothing, some food, whatever we need, that will be supplied also. Just like the father and the mother, they're taking care of the child. The child doesn't have to think. The child is playing when the small boy or girl. And they don't think about what to wear and what to eat and where to sleep. They're there coming home, and then they will sleep at home, and next day the mother is giving the cloth when he's getting up after taking bath, and the breakfast is there, and the child is just interested in playing, and later on he has to go to school and he has to do the studies. And usually when they're small, the children, they're not so much interested in eating. They just want to play, and then they have to study also. But then whatever they need, the parents are giving. They don't even have to ask. So similarly, Krishna will give whatever we need. We don't even have to ask. Automatically we will get. Krishna will make arrangement. So then if you're simply doing everything for Krishna's satisfaction, then karma-bandhaṁ. Then prahāsyasi, one will be released from karma-bandha, from bondage of reaction. Otherwise, if you do karma, then if you do good activities, there's a good result. If you do something which is not so good, then there's a bad result for that. But if you are engaged in devotional service, giving everything to Krishna, there's no reaction to that. And one is properly situated, and then one will realize one's existence as spirit soul, and having a relationship with Krishna, which is the goal of life. Hare Krishna. Any question? Everything clear? Yes.
Thank you so much for the beautiful lecture. I wanted to ask that, that sometimes when we are walking on the path of bhakti, our graph goes up and sometimes it goes down. So it is like, it is not constant as we are not so pure. When it goes down and then when we realize that again we have to go to that level, there is much of guilt. Sometimes it is knowingly done, sometimes the mistakes are unknowing. Then when there is guilt, then how should we proceed further handling that guilt, taking a lesson from it, but not letting that guilt affect our further process?
Yes. Yes, if we are engaged in devotional service, and if you are not mature, then sometimes there's a difficulty there, and then one may be, as we say, one may be then engaged again in sense gratification, and then one will realize, oh, why am I engaged in sense gratification? There is no need of that. So now how should I go ahead? And one may feel guilty, why I engage in sense gratification, it is not good. So how to deal with this? So we have to, as Krishna is saying also, or the acharyas have explained, one has to remain always enthusiastic. Utsa nishcha daryat. And one has to be fixed that have to become perfect in this lifetime, have to come to the highest stage of pure devotional service. But then also one has to be very, very patient, because it is not so easy to come to the highest stage of pure devotional service. But one should try to come to the highest stage, and one has to remain enthusiastic and fixed that I have to attain the goal. But in the conditioned state, in the beginning stage, so difficulties are there, and the example is given just like a child. A small child is there. First, so baby is there, and then after 1 year or 7, 8, 9 months, is starting to crawl. And then at 10, 11, 12 months, then with the help of the parents, is starting to make a few steps. But the parents are holding the hand, and he can walk a little bit. And then afterwards, they will let him go by himself. He makes a few steps and he falls down. And then again the parents will help and he will try to make a few steps. But very slowly, then it will take maybe 1 month till he can actually walk a little bit. But still then sometimes he tries to run and he will fall again, and then he gets up on his own. And then he will continue. And then he's 2 years, he's 3 years, then he's running around. But still then sometimes he falls again. And then he's getting up, he's crying, or he's falling on his nose or whatever. And he's getting hurt a little bit, but then he's getting up and he's again going ahead. Even as adults sometimes, we're walking, sometimes it's something on the road, a hole or something, we stumble and then we fall also. And maybe people are looking, maybe we are embarrassed, or I fall down. But what do? You get up and you continue. That's all, you just have to continue wherever you want to go. And that should not stop you, and it will not stop you. You understand? I just fell down somehow, there was something on the road, I was not careful, and I fell. I just have to get up and I continue where I have to go. Similarly in devotional service, so we try to be fully surrendered to Krishna, controlling the mind and senses, always engaged in devotional service, but then the modes of material nature are there, especially passion and ignorance, and then the consciousness becomes bewildered, and the senses are attracted to the sense objects, and then one may again engage in sense gratification. And then when we realize, oh, why did I eat so much? And then maybe even that you get indigestion or diarrhea, you have to vomit. But then you realize actually it was a mistake and I just have to continue. And I have to, next time the nice foodstuffs are here, then you try to understand, no, last time I ate too much. And then you saw you will get some experience also if you have some difficulty. But also you have to pray always to Guru Gauranga Krishna, please give me the strength. One time Prabhupada was in front of the deities, and then suddenly some tears were coming from the eyes. And then one disciple was there and asked Prabhupada, why are you crying? Prabhupada saying, because Maya is so strong. Very strong, and I was just praying to Krishna, please protect me from this Maya. All the pure devotee, He will never fall because he's protected, because he's praying. But he's also feeling Maya. But he's not falling into Maya because he's praying to Krishna, please help me. I'm insignificant. So you have to do that also. But if you're not yet pure, then sometimes one becomes bewildered and one will fall into sense gratification. But then one has to simply continue. But one has to learn the lesson, and one has to pray harder. And one has to pray every single day. You will have to pray. Because otherwise you will fall down. Maybe subtle, on the subtle level, on the mental, on the conscious platform, or grossly. Every day you have to pray. And when you are a little purified in consciousness, then externally grossly you will not fall. But then even still mentally then, you may have some material desires, and then you realize that is actually not good. But to control that is then more difficult. But then you have to continue praying, so that even on the subtle level, you can remain fixed, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, that you know it not fall down under any circumstance. But that is practically only the liberated platform. When you have got to the complete mercy of the Lord, that you are free from the three modes of material nature, and then you will not fall down again in any way. So you just have to be patient with yourself also. And therefore even with others, we should help others, and we have to help each other, so then we can remain properly situated without falling down to the platform of sense gratification. So there's a constant endeavor required on a daily basis. You will have to try to control, and you have to pray. Every day you have to pray to Guru Gauranga and Krishna to help you. Because by your own endeavor you will fail. Because we don't have the spiritual strength. But in the association with the devotee, by the mercy of Guru Gauranga and Krishna, we will get the strength, and then we can remain properly situated. Otherwise there's no chance. So you have to continue, and you have to pray, just like the child is taking the help of the father and the mother, and then he can walk. So we have to take the help of the spiritual master, we have to take the help of the scriptures, and then we can remain fixed, and then without falling into sense gratification. Okay? Okay. Anything else? One last question.
In the translation, how can we release from the bondage of works? We have to work without fruitive results.
Without
fruitive results.
Yeah, yes.
But practically it's very difficult.
Yes, very difficult. Yes.
Even in spiritual practice also.
Yes.
When I am executing my service, I want some benefit.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Doing service, I want some prasada.
Right, yes.
How to come out?
Yes. Yeah, again with knowledge also and practice. So for example, somebody is cooking, or you're helping in the kitchen cooking for the Lord, and then offering the nice foodstuffs to Krishna, and then, so we should not think that I want to get the rasgulla after. We should not think. But it's difficult. But we should try to control. Now it is for Krishna. Even when you do yagya, the priest is there. We are offering oblations into the fire, ghee and the samagri. And the priest usually will say, idam krishnaya, idam namama. Idam krishnaya, it is for Krishna. It is not for me. Like reciting some shloka, Brahma Samhita, and after each time offering the ghee, idam krishnaya, idam namama. It is for Krishna, it is not for me. And saying all the time, because every second we have the choice, Krishna or Maya. Every second you have the choice. Prabhupada one time he was on Vyasasan. He was saying every second we have the choice. You can go left towards Krishna. You can go right towards Maya. If I'm sitting here, the deities are here. You can go towards Krishna, or you can go towards Maya. So we have the choice every second. Every second. Okay, rasgulla. It is for Krishna. Idam krishnaya, idam namama. The rasgulla is for Krishna. It's not for me. So when you're in the kitchen, you have to be controlled. You have to do bhajan. While chanting already in the morning, by hearing, by praying, you have to pray. Please Krishna, let me give up this sense gratification, let me do everything for your pleasure, not for my pleasure. And then when you're cooking for the Lord and Pujari is coming and making the plate, the rasgullas are there in the bowl. This rasgulla is for Krishna. Idam Krishnaya, idam namama. It is not for me. And then it is offered to Krishna. So you have to control and you have to say. You can say also, yes Krishna, this is for you, whatever is here on the plate. It is not for me. And then it is coming out and it is prasad. Then you may take it, but don't fight for the prasad. If you get, it's fine. If you don't get, no problem also. But be eager for the chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So be eager to chant, to serve, to hear. And for the external things, okay, I want prasad. If you get, fine. If you don't get, fine also. Or I need a dhoti, I've done so much seva. If you get dhoti, it's nice. If you don't get, no problem. But if you're not thinking, if you're thinking, I just want to serve, you will get also. One time I was in New York serving there, and they had the rule that the pujari who is doing the offering, he will not get the Mahaprasad. And I was doing most of the seva, because hardly any pujari was there. Not so easy to be pujari all the time. And then I was doing, and I was not expecting anything. But then the cook was seeing, oh, this devotee is so sincere. He's doing so many offerings, he's not getting Maha. They were kicking, the cook was allowed to take some Mahaprasad. So then they were giving it the Mahaprasad. Because Krishna is there in the heart, and you will get Mahaprasad. If you're serving nicely, then Krishna will inspire. And Antalila Mataji is having the Mahaprasad. Oh, give this boy some Mahaprasad, he's serving so nice, he's not asking anything. He should get Mahaprasad also. Then you're superior, he will see. And especially if you ask humbly, I haven't gotten Mahaprasad since 1 year, then the authority, if you ask humbly, he will give you if you have not received. So you will get whatever you need, whatever you want also, if you're not asking. So that is the better policy, to serve and not expecting anything, but you have to train yourself. And you have to try to be detached and attached to devotional service, attached to Krishna, to the holy names, chanting the holy names, and to the external things which may be there. You may get or may not get, so don't be attached to that. I know it is not easy, but you have to practice every day, and you have to pray to Guru Gauranga and Krishna, please give me this determination, and give me this intelligence. So I always choose to surrender to Krishna, to do everything for Krishna's pleasure, not for my pleasure. So every second you have the choice. So every day, night time, then you should pray also, my dear Lord, if I offended you, the holy names, I was too much engaged in sense gratification on the mental even platform, then please forgive me for that, and let tomorrow be a better day. Let me be more surrendered tomorrow. So that we should always try. And you may fail every day, but then every day you pray, and then one day you'll be successful. Like this. But it is very difficult to control the consciousness and to give up sense gratification on the subtle level. But you have to pray and you have to try your level best, that's all. And ultimately you'll be successful. And that will be the complete mercy of the Lord. Okay? We'll stop here. Hare Krishna.